Mangwana ni mwalelepo vukenjani klekwas manawe Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show bringing you everything you need to know happening on the African continent and beyond. You are joined by Ashwin Bedi and Aina Raiza Kweyo on the 14th of June.
Here are the stories that are making headlines this morning. Tinubu signs law on interest-free student loans. Zimbabwe charges 39 opposition supporters over violence, and Kenya cult survivor faces suicide charges. You can follow Africa Good Morning on our platform, which is called oneup2.com, as well as DSTV channel 285 and GoTV channel 25 in Namibia. Ari Hohad will fill us in on the stories making headlines in South Africa, as well as bring us the sports package. We'll be right back with more after the break. We start off our news segment with news from Nigeria. Tinubu signs law on interest-free student loans. Nigeria's new president, Bola Tinubu, has signed into law a student loan bill, a first of its kind in the country, that offers financial support to poorer students in higher education. Local students in tertiary institutions such as universities, colleges, and polytechnics will now be able to easily get interest-free loans from the Nigerian Education Loan Fund to cover tuition fee. In November, the Nigerian Parliament passed the legislation seeking to establish a national education bank to offer loans to students, but former President Muhammadu Buhari failed to assent to the bill before leaving office on the 29th of May.
In our next story, Zimbabwean authorities have charged 39 opposition activists with political violence over the alleged demolishing of a ruling party office on Monday as tensions grow ahead of the elections in August. Now, prosecutors said the group attacked an office of the ruling ZANU-PF party in Nyatsime, south of the capital, last week. The group destroyed several houses and also assaulted members of the Nyatsime community, thereby causing massive destruction to property and inflicted serious injuries on them, prosecutors said. The incident comes as rights groups and opposition parties have complained of a clampdown ahead of the vote. Lawyers for those detained, however, stopped short of saying the accusations were politically motivated. Our clients were not even at the scene, Anesu Chirisa, legal head at Zimbabwe Human Rights NGO Forum, an umbrella group representing the 39, told AFP. The 39 were arrested over the weekend and on Monday briefly appeared before a local court. They were remanded into custody after investigating authorities called for a lengthy custodial sentence.
In our next story, Kenya cult survivor faces suicide charges. 65 survivors of a Kenyan Christian cult are facing charges of attempted suicide after refusing to eat meals given to them at the rescue center where they had been taken. At a court on Monday, the prosecution applied to have the survivors remanded in prison where mental and medical assessments could be done, as the rescue center could no longer hold them. A ruling on the application is expected later in the week. It is a criminal offense to take your own life in Kenya under laws introduced by British colonizers. Those same rules in England were scrapped more than 60 years ago, and Kenyan campaigners are fighting to end them in their country too.
Now, more than 45 civilians were killed in a militia attack on a camp for displaced people in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo's Ituri province, and this was early on Monday, the United Nations peacekeeping mission said. The Cooperative for the Development of the Congo Group, one of many militias operating in the conflict-ridden East, was responsible for the killings at the Lala camp, the mission known as MONUSCO said in a statement. Codeco claims to defend the interests of Lendu farmers who have long been in conflict with Hema herders. years. Its fighters have killed hundreds of civilians in Ituri province and forced thousands to flee their homes, according to the United Nations. Over 45 people were killed and at least 10 wounded in the attack, MONUSCO said, adding that it liaised with provincial authorities to reinforce security in the area. The UN Refugee Agency said armed assailants killed people, including women and children, with guns and machetes. At least 12 people were burned alive after their shelters were set on fire, it added.
In our next story, DRC president says Africa cannot stay silent on Russia-Ukraine war. Congolese President Denis Sassou Nguesso says he believes that Africa cannot remain silent in the face of the conflict in Ukraine. President Sassou Nguesso said this in Abidjan on Monday during the beginning of a three-day state visit aimed at strengthening cooperation ties between his country, the Republic of Congo, and Ivory Coast. About 13 agreements will be signed in the fields of fishing, agriculture, livestock breeding, and tourism during the state visit. The remark comes just a few days before several of the continent's heads of states, including Sassou Nguesso, are set to meet in Kiev and Moscow to mediate.
All right, now speaking of Africa's stance on Russia and Ukraine, South Africa has come under fire for being neutral, but being considered to be leaning towards Russia in their stance. And what has happened, the BRICS summit is on its way, and Russia is ought to attend. And because it has been so contentious, they're considering moving the BRICS summit to China. We'll be talking to Ari Hohad after the break as he fills us in.
Welcome to What's Cooking, where culinary passion meets expert insights.
Somebody must really want to cook and want to cook good food.
Immerse yourself in the bustling world of professional kitchens as top chefs create mouthwatering dishes. Join us for in-depth interviews as our host explores the experiences and expertise of our guest chefs. Don't miss out. Tune in to What's Cooking on NTV every Friday at 2100 hours and let the culinary adventure begin.
Of course, South Africa is required due to their international agreements to arrest Vladimir Putin should he attend the BRICS summit in South Africa. And the contentiousness of this issue has led to the summit potentially being moved in China. However, Ari Hohad in South Africa is here with the facts. How are you, Ari? Take it away.
Yes, very good morning, Ashwin. Yes, lots of people with opinion on the subject. So there's lots of use the word noise on this one. But one of the ways that they try to address this at the moment, it's not confirmed yet, is there's a possibility that the BRICS conference might be held then in China. So it's definitely not confirmed, but that is an option. That is an option because China and India, in fact, as well, they're not members of the International Criminal Court, so they're not obliged to arrest President Putin if he do at the conference. In South Africa, that's not the case at the moment. South Africa being a member of the International Criminal Court, so we all know the story. South Africa is expected to arrest him, and it's very clear that the South African government don't want to do that. So that is something that's on the table. There's pressures from other sides of the world, and we've talked about that before, especially from the United States, that using this opportunity to put pressure on South Africa. The one that they're using is AGOA, that's the African Growth and Opportunity Act. So that is assisting South Africa or African countries to import or to export to the USA with a 25% discount, or 25% of the people don't pay any taxes. It's basically duty-free export to the United States for 25% of customers. So South Africa might be under pressure to lose that, so we'll see how that develops, but there is pressure all around, so we'll see how that develops.
Difficult position that South Africa is in, Ari. Now we go over to our next story. The Passenger Rail Agency of South Africa has set a target to rebuild 33 train stations countrywide by March 2024. Is this feasible, Ari?
It looks like they're making good progress in Cape Town. I've spoken to some of the people here as well. Apologies, they're still taking the taxi rather than the train, because the train is not very reliable at the moment. But it used to transport 500 million people year. That was just a few years ago. That was before COVID. So it is a system that is very important to the commuters in Cape Town, also in Johannesburg and also in Durban. That's what's been happening, is commuters walking on the rail tracks, and that's because there's not enough trains running. So currently the problem is rail infrastructure, also electrical cables and railway tracks that got lost or stolen, and people actually living on the tracks as well, like that indication there. So it is hopefully achievable. There's been enough money that's put towards that, and it seems like they're very serious to get that back in order again. That will be very important for the commuters in South Africa all over.
Yes, indeed. You know, as I'm looking at your next story, Ari, it seems insane to me that the world has billionaires, because I'm looking at Telecom, South Africa's third largest mobile operator, suffering a 10 billion rand loss, which of course affects a lot of people, but is actually less than Kanye West lost. It's very interesting the way the world approaches things like capitalism. But let's talk about Telecom, third largest supplier, 10 billion rand loss. Cannot be pretty.
No, it cannot be pretty. I think even Kanye West do have a tear in his eye when he looks at this figures. I think it's 10 billion rand is it's 2/3 of its market share. So it's not. They say the reasons is hefty impairments. There's also restructuring, and that had to do with almost 1,000 people being let off or giving packages. There's also load shedding as a reason, but there's two other big components in the South African mobile phone system as well. That is Vodacom and MTN. It is Telecom that started with telephones. All of the Telecom phone line in the old days, but now Telecom do have 18 million subscribers, but Vodacom has 45 million and MTN 35 million. If I add up those three, it's more than the people in South Africa. So obviously there's people with 2 or 3 or 4 SIM cards. But so it's a big business, but it's under pressure, and they look to also restructure costs in the next 2 to 3 years, and cutting 3 billion rand of cost in the next 2 to 3 years. That's Telkom's statement. So hopefully they can get the boat into better waters, so to speak.
Right, Ari, in some exciting news, your home ground, Cape Town, has been crowned South Africa's best city brand. Africa's rather best city brand. Tell us about this.
Yes, proud about that, and it's the entity that did that was Brand Finance City Index. So it's 15,000 individuals worldwide from 20 countries that took part in that, and it's the most visited country in Africa. And it's the 33rd most visited country in the world with related to rich and cultural heritage and diversity. So it's a unique place to visit, and it's obviously the beauty and the surroundings, like behind me, do make a big difference. Table Mountain and all the wine regions, etc. And it's actually the infrastructure is also quite stable. So it's a good place to visit. So we're proud of that, and that's good news to end with. And that's the waterfront. So hopefully the two of you, Ashwin and Aina, can soon we can sit on one of those decks there and have something to drink looking at Table Mountain.
Certainly looking forward to it, Ari, even though I must say my theory is that the reason Cape Town has been named the best city in Africa is because it harbors Africa's national treasure, Ari Hochad. Thank you very much for bringing us the news stories.
Okay, we'll have a drink about that one, but I appreciate Ashwin. I appreciate it, and a great day for everyone. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye. Now, something we also always appreciate is when we can actually get through an entire interview with Ari because of electricity woes in South Africa. Now, Mozambique is boosting South Africa's power supply amid its crisis. We'll talk about that when we get into economic news, but first, here's the weather.
Hello and welcome to today's Sports Rep Show.
I am your host, Jesse Jackson Kauraika. In replay, Namibia, who had won the toss for the first time on this tour.
Good day everyone, time for international sports news, starting off with tennis news, both on the WTA for women's and
In our economic news this morning, Mozambique boosts the SA power supply amid crisis. Mozambique has offered to supply 100 megawatts of electricity to neighboring South Africa amid a supply deficit and regular blackouts. The offer, announced in the South African capital Pretoria on Monday, follows a request by the South African government last month. Mozambique's Mineral Resources and Energy Minister Carlos Zakaria said the commercial agreement defining the price and how and when the energy could be channeled to South Africa should be closed very soon. South Africa's Electricity Minister Kgotjensho Ramokgopa said he was very happy with the swift response by the Mozambican government, adding that technicians were working to make operations viable.
Nigerian President Bola Tinubu has been advised to reduce the state's stake in the oil and gas sector to raise up to $17 billion to boost economic growth during his 4-year term, a policy document showed. The proposals drawn up by Tinubu's policy advisory team and first reported by Nigerian media at the weekend would represent a major shakeup of the sector that has been Nigeria's economic lifeblood since the 1960s. Under the plans, the state-controlled Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited would sell part of its stakes in joint ventures it operates with oil majors. That brings us to the end of our economic news stories. Just before we get into the sports, here are the indicators. Yeah.
Good day everyone, time for international sports news, and starting off with soccer news first. And with all the big tournaments being done, the Champions League and the English Premier League, it is time for the clubs to try and strengthen their squads. So there's a transfer window now, and talk from Paris Saint-Germain is that Kylian Mbappe, the influential striker from France, he might be leaving the club. He still has a year contract, but the club seem to be in negotiations to sell him. It's not sure where he might go to, but there's speculation that it might be Real Madrid. And he will be very expensive. He will cost probably more than 100 million euros for a transfer. And Real Madrid is in the market to acquire a striker. That is because one of their strikers, Karim Benzema, he went to Saudi Arabia. There's also speculation that Harry Kane from Tottenham Hotspur might be linked to Real Madrid, but Manchester United also interested to sign Harry Kane. Paris Saint-Germain at one stage has had 3 of the best strikers in world football, and that was Neymar that played for them. Also it was Mbappe, and then also Lionel Messi. But Lionel Messi also already confirmed that he will play at the English club. He will play in the US Major League, that is Inter Miami. That is where he's going to continue his career. Uncertain what Neymar's plans will be. Also from players in the English Premier League, it is Arsenal that came very close to winning the English Premier League this year. They finished second behind Manchester City, but they seem to be in negotiations to sign Declan Rice. He's a very good player from West Ham. That might also be very expensive. They're talking about 100 million euro plus to sign Declan Rice to Arsenal, but that is still in negotiations. On to cricket news, and the much anticipated Ashes will start on Friday. That is the cricket Ashes between Australia and England. Australia had an impressive win in the Test Championship Series where they beat India, and so they will be probably the favourites, although they're playing all 5 tests in England. News from the England camp is the influential captain Ben Stokes will be fit to play on Friday, but it's uncertain if he will be fit to bat as well. He's of course an all-rounder, one of the best all-rounders in world cricket, and he could be selected just as a batsman, but that will put pressure on the bowlers. Ben Stokes is an important component for England's cricket as captain. Since he took over, England won 11 of their 13 test matches, and before that they only won 1 out of 17 test matches. So it was Ben Stokes that, together with Brendan McCullum, he is the coach of New Zealand, or the New Zealand born, and he played international cricket for New Zealand. Brendan McCullum, the two of them definitely brought a big change to England cricket. So the first test starting on Friday the 16th, that will be at Edgbaston. And continuing international sports news with golf news, and it's South African golfer Ashley Buhai that moved up to number 12 in the world rankings. That was after winning the ShopRite Classic that was on the Ladies PGA the past weekend. She was number 16 in the world before the tournament. That's the highest position she's ever had on world rankings, and getting closer to the top 10 rankings. Another South African that is on the world rankings is 75th. That is Paula Rito. Paula Rito of South Africa, currently number 75 in the world. The number 1 ranked player in the women's game of golf is Yin Young Ko. She is from South Korea, and just behind her is Nelly Korda. She is from the United States. The next tournament on the Ladies PGA will be the Maya Classic. That will be played at the Blythersfield Country Club, and that is in Michigan. Closing off with some more golf news, and that is the US Senate in the United States. They have announced that they're investigating the planned commercial merger that is between the United States PGA, the PGA Tour, and the DP World Tour of Europe, and then also the Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund. That's a merger that is planned, commercial merger between the 3 entities. The US Senate say that they're investigating the risk posed by foreign governments taking control of American institutions. So that is still up for debate at the moment, and the US Senate has asked for all documents to be handed over to them for them to investigate that. So that's all happening in the world of golf. I hope you have a great sport day today, and we talk again tomorrow. Goodbye.
Hello and welcome to today's Sports Rep Show.
I am your host, Jesse Jackson Kauraifa. In replay, Namibia, who had won the toss for the first time on this tour.
Good day everyone, time for international sports news, starting off with tennis news, both on the WTA for women's and
to another exciting episode of Pirongo Talk. We bring jou lees die weer en vertel ook vir julle waar die vis julle monster gaan byt.
Thank you for staying with Africa Good Morning throughout the broadcast. Let's have a look at the highlights. Tinubu signs law on interest-free student loans. Zimbabwe charges 39 opposition supporters over violence. Kenya cult survivors face suicide charges. And Mozambique boosts SA power supply amid crisis.
Those have been our stories. We thank you very much for watching our show this morning. Please be reminded that we absolutely welcome your remarks. You can post them on our Twitter and Facebook pages. Africa Good Morning screens on DSTV channel 285 as well as GoTV channel 25 in Namibia. And on that note, it's all our love, all our light. Happy Tuesday.